What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Iran sends a deadly message to the United States and President Biden as Palestine continues to attack Israel and Israel attacks Palestine here in the new war. And President Biden and the Pentagon and the Department of Defense says that they will defend Israel. And they have sent an aircraft carrier fleet over to the region with thousands of American troops. Take a look here. Iran sends deadly message to President Biden with the Hamas attack on Israel. Yeah. Regardless of whether Iran plotted and ordered the massive Hamas attack against Israel over the weekend, Tehran's backing and support for the Palestinian militants group sends a clear and defiant message to Washington. The U.S. has yet to confirm a direct involvement from Tehran in the operation, but they have funded them for years. Officials acknowledge Iranians are indirectly compliant in training, funding, and supporting the terrorist group Hamas, who is responsible for the missile attack and larger attack on Israel. The Hamas invasion, the worst attack on Israel in 50 years, shows Tehran is increasingly willing to damage U.S. allies and U.S. citizens that have been found dead in this attack, and in effect try to weaken American influence through proxy groups. It comes as Iran's influence as a regional power appears on the rise. And my thoughts are, I wanted to kind of expand on this from an earlier video. If you were Iran, Russia, China, or North Korea, and now the US is involved in two proxy wars, Ukraine and Israel, having to supply and defend two different countries, you are spreading the United States thin. The U.S. is already thin on military supplies, and now will be even thinner on military supplies. So the U.S. is now even weaker in multiple different fronts. And now Israel, a longtime ally of the United States, will be vulnerable. Not only will Israel be vulnerable, but the United States will even be even more vulnerable. Think about this for a second. If you were somebody like Iran, China, North Korea, or Russia, Russia and North Korea have both just recently threatened the United States with nuclear weapons. What better to do than to draw the United States, draw forces, and make them spend their ammo and just spend it over and over and over and over on two different fronts. And casualties of innocent people happening here in both Ukraine and now in Israel. We are in sad, unprecedented times. I mentioned in the previous video, and I've seen it in the comments, and a lot of people are thinking about this. These are biblical times. This is stuff that is written about in the Bible. Sadly. Take a look at some of this footage.
The expanding geopolitical fallout from a deadly war. Israel pounding the Gaza Strip with airstrikes and ordering a complete siege on the Palestinian territory. Israel's gathering 300,000 troops at the border, all ahead of a possible ground operation in Gaza. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says this is just the beginning.
What we will do to our enemy in the next few days will echo for generations.
In the weekend attacks, 700 have been confirmed dead in Israel, some estimates much higher. Thousands more have been injured, and 150 are currently being held hostage, some of them women and children. And the U.S. State Department also confirming that 11 Americans have been killed since it began. As the toll mounts, Wall Street is closely watching the unfolding developments. After an early dive, stock staged a midday comeback. It appears that investors in a wait-and-see mode, at least for now. Unsurprisingly, buyers came into defense stocks. Northrop Grumman had its best day in more than 3 years. All the other major names rallied as well. And oil spiking by about 4%. We will have much more on oil and energy a bit later on in the program. But for now, the geopolitical shockwaves and how this may play out. Joining us is retired four-star general and NBC News military analyst Barry McCaffrey and Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies at Yale School of Management, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld. He helped advise the development of the Abraham Accords, also co-authored a new piece in Time titled Why Hamas Tried to Sabotage Arab-Israeli Peace Prospects with a Massive Unprovoked Attack. General McCaffrey, first to you. How do you see this playing out over the next days, weeks, and possibly months?
Well, of course, it's a massive tragedy. Thousands killed and wounded in Israel, unprovoked attack. We got to remind ourselves, Hamas is a terrorist organization so designated by both the European Union, the United States, and Israel. This is not the National Liberation Front. This is one of the cruelest, most despicable operations the Middle East has seen. The Israelis have two objectives right now. One is prevent widening of the war, particularly Hezbollah. 110,000 unguided rockets, maybe 15,000 precision munitions. They do not want Hezbollah into the war. That's where a lot of these reserves will be moved to deter that possibility. And then finally, the Israelis have got to go in and get their hostages. You know, I've done a lot of counterterrorism plans where you develop a target folder, you rehearse for 2 months, you go get a hostage. 150, we have no idea where they are. They're going to have to go in the ground with an infantry armor force, dominate the streets, and then try and use intelligence and special ops and tunnel rats to find these people in the coming month or so. It's a dismal prospect for the Israelis.
Jeff, you argued in your piece in Time magazine that this is largely likely because Saudi Arabia and Israel were nearing an historic deal, by the way, that would normalize relations between the two nations. Iran would want to have nothing to do with that. Do you think that was indeed the primary reason for this unprovoked and horrific attack?
Ryan, that's exactly what happened. It wasn't the weather. It wasn't somebody's birthday. It wasn't that they wanted to celebrate the close of Simchas Torah. Is that they did this because a huge, fantastic, historic deal was very near with the Saudis that would have led to a recognition, a normalization of relations that already had taken place years earlier under President Trump. And of course, President Biden kept it going with Morocco, first UAE, and Bahrain. That was very encouraging that the business leaders, the political leaders in those other Gulf state nations are saying, we have to put the past behind us. The younger generation is tired of being trapped in the quicksand of past conflict. It's time to move forward. And they were moving forward with a very, very good deal. But it was back in 2019 when I went over with Jared Kushner helped organize it and hosted 300 leaders from around the world, including all the Gulf nations, including Saudi Arabia, were there. And they talked about the importance of recognizing Israel is here to stay. And it was peace through prosperity was the foundations of these Abraham Accords, is looking at how they could build an economic future, primarily to benefit the Palestinians with a high-speed road connecting Gaza and the West Bank with power and water improvements.
And get this, even though Hamas, coming out of Palestine, had sent over 2,000 rockets on the surprise attack into Israel, and they still continue this. And now Israel obviously is attacking back and has declared war back. They're now mounting 300,000 troops at the border. You can see the start of a large war. Obviously, they're retaliating back. Take a look at this. Palestinian president asked the United Nations for help with Israeli aggression in Gaza. Well, hello, this wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have attacked the surprise attack with 2 1,000 missiles into Israel. Hello? It's like a cause and effect. And remember, they're still attacking. There's still a Gaza bombardment continues. Rockets fly over Israel. If you've seen my previous video, I'll link you to that video here in a moment. You can actually see a live update of the Iron Dome, which is Israel's defense system. The Iron Dome it's just kind of a word it's just kind of the name for it. It's a rocket defense system that goes up and shoots rockets down. And it's a really good system. In fact, the U.S. helped Israel build it years ago. And the reason it can be done is because it's in a small area. Okay. So for example, like, you think about the U.S. coast, or there's a missile defense system like this now in Ukraine, but the biggest thing you have to think about this is that it can only do it in a certain area. So, for example, the U.S. has things like this as well, but you got to remember that, like, if you put one in Florida, it obviously can't shoot down rockets in North Carolina or South Carolina. Okay, it's just too far of a spread. So you have to have these periodically. And for national defense, I don't know how much the U.S. discloses about this. Okay, you could maybe look something like this up, but for the U.S., we have a large coastline. We have all of the eastern coast, all of the southern coast, all of the western coast. We have Hawaii, Alaska, which is right next to Russia. So you got to kind of think about this. Israel, just has that right next to Palestine there. It's the Iron Dome it can basically handle a large majority of that with just that one system, that one Iron Dome system. So just kind of think that through. I'll link you to that video here. You can kind of see it in action. It's an unprecedented system. And the U.S. has systems like this as well. In fact, I did a video on this. It was quite a while ago that former President Donald Trump says that we need to be beefing up our missile defense systems as well. Again, but you got to remember that, and who knows how much of this we actually have in the United States, our own Iron Domes, which is basically just a missile defense system. You can see it in action. They go up and they shoot missiles out of the sky. Hopefully we never have to, here in the United States, see something like this in action, but it's kind of scary. You think about this, a lot of people think, even before the Israel war started, that we are in the start of World War III with the Russia-Ukraine war, all of NATO kind of involved, supporting Ukraine, Russia and North Korea getting involved with Russia, and now we have Israel involved with Palestine and Iran involved there, United States involved, and people think that this is the start of World War III with all these different countries involved, and now it's growing larger. So you guys can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date. If you haven't yet, subscribe down below. Click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any new videos. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here on my YouTube channel at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You don't get to hear a lot of this stuff on your daily news station. Don't forget to like and share these videos here as well. Click here to see the video of the Iron Dome missile defense system in effect. Or click here to see how these massive strikes in the U.S. are affecting your pocketbook. Click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.